loud, but
Okay, roll call.
Bender,
Here.
Ermeling,
Here.
Minell,
Here.
Oldenburg,
Here.
Simmons is absent.
Okay. Approve the minutes of the previous meeting of July 19th.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion by, Oldenburg, I couldn't, all of a sudden your name just went right out the door. Do I have a second?
Go ahead.
I'll second it.
Okay, Brent, Minell. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Okay, Zoom meeting by computer and by phone. Is there anyone on the Zoom?
No.
Okay. Acknowledge work product transmittals, July budget status report. What's your pleasure?
The narrative's in there. We're doing okay this year. I think we're pretty close to budget. There's a couple of areas where we're under, so we'll just keep watching those. Those are specifically like winter maintenance. We have significant savings with the amount of salt and the overtime, but that's a line that coming into next year's budget, I don't think we're gonna be budging because the average for the last 3 years is we're gonna need those funds. So it's just a line that if we have savings 1 year, we still need to keep it, so at this point, we're just gonna let it hang out there. We do have a unbudgeted expense for Safer, it's $95,000. That's payment of the deficit that we had, an agreement that we pay for the next 5 years. So we still anticipate taking that one out yet this year, so that will be coming out. Other than that, is there any questions on anything? I think we noted that if you look at some of the budget status, specifically workers' comp, those numbers are a little messed up. We had a glitch in our computer software, so like parks had like $100,000 worth of workers' comp expense in there.
Oh, jeez.
It shouldn't be, so next month we'll get, it was fixed already.
Yeah, it was fixed. I just didn't redo all of the reports.
So they're a little, we'll say off compared to where they really should be, but we put the numbers in as they were.
I just have one, didn't we, I thought we paid off the Safer.
Now we paid $230,000,
Oh, we just paid it down.
280.
Okay,
Our total owed was like $495.
okay.
That's good.
I knew we did something and I couldn't remember.
I think we have 123 left, so even after we pay 95 this year, we'll still have a small part next year.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to, just to acknowledge?
So moved.
Motion by Bender,
Second.
second by Oldenburg, okay, yeah. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Okay, educational presentations and reports, levy limit presentation, budget discussion.
I'm gonna go back to the July budget status. The pool is where the invoices we're receiving from the Y are higher than budgeted. So part of that is additional staffing and then like training. So normally we didn't have as much training as the Y staff had this year. And part of the reason is because some of the staff are not familiar with the large pool, and I think that was a challenge for the Y management to really get used to the large pool, large number of people to watch. So there was additional training class. They also discovered that they needed one additional staff on hand to really feel comfortable for the safety of the pool and people. So bring that up because in the future, I might be coming to you asking to see if I can get some more room tax to help fund the pool. We'll have to see how that goes, and then we'll have to see our future relationship with the Y. It's something we'll probably be working with them, having a conversation at the end of the year, what could be improved and how to more closely watch our budget and what do we need to do with our budget to more closely match the needs of the pool for safety reasons. Okay, levy limit. We got our net new construction number. So go to the next page and then pull that up. So when we talked about levy limits before, since levy limits were imposed, the village always had a lot of flexibility because that debt service exemption number, the one in orange, never matched the debt service amount down below. If you see that arrow matching down, we've always had flexibility. We have used that flexibility up almost. So this year we have 111,472 of flexibility left. With our current net new construction of 0.82, it allowed us to increase our levy 42,958. So without that flexibility that we just talked about, that would be our new revenues that we could levy for. But we do have some more flexibility, so when preparing the budget this year, we'll have to see how much of the 111 we want to use. And then, because if once that orange of the debt service exemption equals that number below, which is the debt service levy, our flexibility will be ending. And then we'll be more restricted to more restricted on our increases to our revenue to offset any expenditure increases. And just giving a heads up, we've been talking about this for many years. I think this is the best presentation yet. It's really easy to see where that flexibility was and why it's diminishing now.
Well, before we had debt service was in the levy. I mean, not as debt service per se, it was part of just the village general, correct?
Yes.
That's why we,
Yeah, we were using general operating levy to pay for debt, for many years since the levy limit worksheet came out. And at this time, we're sneaking closer and losing that flexibility that we've enjoyed for many years. That's just a sneak peek of where we're at for budget. Budget discussion, where does everyone want to be with our budget participation level? Do we want same as in the past? Because we can do that, but we're always looking for more participation, more involvement. So it's not just our budget, it's everybody's budget, the village's budget. So when we bring it forward to you, we're gonna start with the general fund. And we usually have everything set in stone, but I guess, is there a point where you want to have more say? Or at what point do you want to step in and say anything?
Are you asking for a budget workshop like we have had in the past? I think.
That's what, so in the past, what we've done is we brought a PowerPoint presentation to you and we presented it. And there really hasn't been much change from the numbers that we present.
I've been comfortable with what you did in the past. I mean, if you're looking for something more specific,
I'm thinking like,
If you're liking what we did in the past, we'll definitely bring back the same format.
I guess I would agree. You as well as the department heads, et cetera, have a better handle on what's going on within your departments, et cetera. Obviously, if there's some major changes or whatever else, you always brought them as to this is why this happened and so on and so forth. And that's what I would expect. You're there day to day. We show up minimally and yeah, we can be asked and we ask questions, but you're the ones that actually have the numbers and the responsibilities and the wherewithal as to what's going on in each department and so on. I guess I feel comfortable with what you've been doing as of late anyway.
So what that's amounted to is we've put a budget together and then you put together a summary that kind of focuses on the highlights, the major changes from year to year. I guess.
Right.
I was just gonna say, some purchases that I just can remember, like those voter books, that was one of the things that came up. It was something a little different and did we want to do this or didn't we want to do it? That type of, is where I'm more concerned with, but the day-to-day budget, I mean, like Bob said, we're not here enough to even, give a real good opinion about general expenses. I mean, I want to look at them, but I really don't want to be second guessing either. I might question something, but.
Right. So looking forward to this budget, one of the things we realized is we're gonna have a little bit more cost with the new building. We're looking at higher janitorial, more insurance costs, and that's something that for next year, we're gonna have to guesstimate. If we do plan on moving in October, we're gonna have those higher costs for a few months. So that's one area where we wanna make sure that we're budgeting appropriately. So you're gonna see increases there, and we wanna make sure we're ready for the additional costs that we may see with the new building. Other than that, we're looking at a timeline. So the first Monday in September is Labor Day. So we're wondering if we would like to present that week, either Wednesday through Friday. And then we'll have the September 20th, which is a normal meeting for us. Then we're looking at the 4th, which is the first Monday in October. And then October 18th, which would be the final date that we would get together before publishing on the 31st. Getting together on the 18th would give us some flexibility if we wanted to have an extra meeting on the 4th Monday if we're not happy with the way the budget's looking. Because we need to get it sent out for publishing on the 31st with a target adoption of November 15th. Which is a normal board meeting. We try to get it done before Thanksgiving week, knowing that there is spotty attendance. We don't want to have to rely on that week for the adoption. Scheduling a meeting in September, and then the 20th and the 4th would give us September general fund, the first week of September general fund, September 20th, we could do special revenues, and then October 4th, we could do utilities. In the past, we have combined the special revenue and utilities on one. I'm a little bit hesitant to do that again. It just doesn't allow for adequate time for all funds to really get recognized, but that is something we can do. Is there a desire to have maybe meet the first week in September, or should we just wait till September 20th? What are the thoughts?
If you feel we should meet earlier, that's fine. I don't know about everybody else, but I don't have a problem.
As long as you have the stuff together, I guess
Yeah.
it's not a
I mean,
necessary.
if that takes a little more stress off of the whole process, then do it.
Or is it a stress to get it done by then?
I don't know how much time it takes to get it to the point of.
Right. That's, we also have a October 25th if we want to come back.
Are you focusing strictly on having meetings on Mondays in this case, or?
We
looking
are,
at
we
different
can
days
always
potentially?
switch them too. The
Well-
20th and the 18th are obviously normal, the 4th would be a special.
Fourth would be good, because that's off Monday, so it's not.
On October 4th is what you're saying? I'll be probably out of town.
Okay. Maybe we can send out doodles too.
Yeah, we can do that.
Because
For dates.
these are gonna be joint meetings, so we're gonna have the board, along with finance at these meetings, so we can all be on the same page when moving forward. We'll send out some doodle polls and see where we're at, see if the second Monday is busy with other meetings, so if we wanted to push it out to the second week in September, we'd have to kind of look at different days besides Mondays.
And the 6th is a holiday.
Yeah, this is a holiday.
Yeah, so we'd be looking at like Tuesday if we did anything that week
Mm-hmm,
of September.
right. Okay, we'll send out some doodle polls once we reevaluate, and make sure that we get published and adopted on time. Okay, anything else?
Any other questions? Okay. So we're done with that one. And policy issues, assessor contract.
So at the February meeting, the finance committee recommended that we reach out to our current assessor and get it set up for our market reevaluation. Attached is the draft contract. Our attorney did reply late in the day Friday with a final version, but not in time for the packet. So it'll cost us $51,000 for this market revaluation. Our assessment ratio did drop again, slightly, with all the increase in the market values of the properties, which reflects the valuations, the equalized values, I should say. It's definitely a need for this.
Okay, what's your pleasure? And or not?
I guess I'd make a recommendation that the Board of Trustees accept the contract as is for the market evaluation.
Motion
I'll second that.
made, Bender? On the question?
Question, Matt reviewed the contract that was drafted by Greg, so Greg and I were working back and forth on this thing, and Matt had seen it. He also took a look, and he also showed him the existing contract that we have with Greg for the maintenance services. So there are some sections of that contract that Matt suggested be brought over. This was after he looked at it the first time. So there's a section in the existing contract on level of service. It's section 5 in that contract, section 7, which covers complaints, 8, a confidentiality section, an independent it just identifies and emphasizes that the assessor's an independent contractor. That's clause number 12. There's an indemnification section, number 13, and then there's a section on insurance, number 14. So those are existing clauses in the current contract. I guess with those amendments, I guess we can have the final version drafted based on your recommendation and get it executed if that's acceptable to the committee.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carry. Interim financing for municipal center. Bank note.
The village sent out requests for proposals for an interim financing for a new municipal center. We got responses from 5 banks, and then the lowest was Intercity and the highest being Incredible Bank. Well, the highest total cost would be associated, but part of the problem there we had was the maturity date. I was not specific in my RFP, which I should have been, which leads to some So the total cost of that is not correctly reflected for all of them, but with the interest rate from intercity at 0.89, that is the lowest.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, well, they wanna keep it, they wanna stay good with us, I think.
He is on Zoom, I think.
Yes.
So our goal is to work with intercity, see if we can, I sent it out as a straight borrowing because that was the easiest for RFP purposes, but actually our goal is to see if we can work with the bank, see if we can get a construction type loan, so we don't have to take out the full $8.1 million tomorrow. And just take it out as we need the funds, and then obviously in the end, we're gonna end up with a 8.1 GO note with Inner City. Which it will be due November of 2022 to be refinanced into a 20-year bond at that time. I was talking with Keith before, and Jenna, I said, we're gonna keep an eye on this interest rates. If these interest rates all of a sudden decide they wanna go crazy, we're gonna take our street portion of the building, which we can do a 20-year bond on right away,
right,
and get that locked in.
right,
So that,
Kinda wondering.
yeah, that's what I was,
that's what we're gonna say, May next year, even.
right,
July.
whenever you see that there is a tendency for that to change drastically, I guess is, my thought is don't wait for us, do the legwork, get everything handled and.
Yeah, we'll get in contact with Greg from Ellers and get
Right.
that motion to set that in stone. Hopefully they'll stay low, but
How long of a turn process that it is that from the time you contact Ellers to?
I think we can get it done in 30 days. I mean, if it's a rush, month and a half, month.
Yeah.
Couple months, I think, probably.
Is it 2 months?
30 to 60 days typically, it's usually 60 days, but it's,
By the time they put them
60
out.
days.
I think he said, he gave a range last time when we had him on the call. I thought he said somewhere between like 30 and 60 days.
yeah,
I thought if we really needed to, we could get pushed through.
Yeah.
and I'm assuming what else they've got going at the same time, they're, constantly doing those loans and stuff anyways, but it's,
Could you get certain portions done so that it's ready? Or is this part of also selecting a bank too?
No, when we work with Greg from Ellers, the majority is the offering statement. So the offering statement that we prepare so that potential buyers review. That takes quite a bit of time, and then also the legal counsel. And there's a ton more legal work done when we go out to market with this.
when they go out to market, then you have to leave so many days for responses and counter-response type of thing, so that's part of the issue.
Mark, just out of curiosity, what are the 20-year rates at right now, do you know? Approximately, I'm just curious.
For like treasury yields?
No, I meant for a municipal borrowings.
Oh, like 115, 125 in that range. I mean, they're low, there's no doubt about it. I mean, this is as low as they've been in.
Ellers that comes out every time.
I personally don't think rates are going up anytime between now and the end of the year.
How about in the next year?
I doubt it,
Okay.
in the year, I doubt it, but that can change pretty fast. I mean, we've seen rates move around 15 basis points from week to week. And my guess is when they do start to break, it's gonna happen fast. You're gonna call Greg and 30 days later, you're gonna have missed
Yeah.
30 basis points or 40 basis points in the move. So
Mhm.
whenever you guys decide that, hey, it's time to move, you probably need to be
Yes.
making that decision before you see rates move, or you're gonna miss a big part of the move.
So it might be better for her to plan on doing it next year sometime if,
That's what I would do. I would pick something kind of tentative and say, hey, here's about the time frame that we're thinking we wanna do this, and not base it on, well, I saw rates go above 140 because then they're probably still going higher as you're trying to get this done.
No, we can't refinance the total project until it's completed. So to refinance the total project into a 20-year bond, we have to complete the project and then refinance our current notes. Unless, of course, we want to finance the street portion of the building, which is approximately $10 million, that we could, tomorrow, we could take out a 20-year bond for that. But our goal is to finance it all, the whole building and the public safety building into one 20-year GO bond. The state statutes don't allow us to do it any other way, because they don't allow administrative parts to be financed with 20-year bonds.
I kind of thinking what you mentioned, pick a date to, you know, to lock in a good portion of it. I mean, if you're locking in the 10 million, then boy, 115, that's pretty darn good.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
We can't.
If you'd be looking at somewhere,
I mean, you get exposed to all this stuff from the guys you buy your bonds from and stuff. And I'm just saying that, I'm actually thinking maybe we should
Cost to issue the 10 year
date at year end.
as of 15.
look at it at year end and see what's definitely so that if you'd be looking at something by the end of the first quarter next year.
I think even before that possibly. Do you have to, at the end of this year? I mean, I don't think anything's gonna happen rate wise until spring, if then.
The economists that I follow have updated their forecast recently, and they're not showing anything happening through the first half of next year now.
Right.
That's just an opinion, it's not a guarantee.
Right.
So, but I mean, that seems to be the prevailing, is that rates are gonna stay relatively low here for a while. But when they do start to move, my guess is that first 25 basis points is gonna go by in a hurry.
Yeah. Maybe you just kind of feel out what, if we did it in two steps,
Right.
what the difference in
Might
expenses would be
Yeah.
in that, so. Following what you'd be saying, you know, if we did something in May next year,
Mhm.
this is what it would cost us, this is what today's rates are, and then maybe say, okay, if we did it again a year later when the building's all done. It's just a thought.
Got all the borrowing costs twice. Okay.
Well, it depends on what the legal fees are gonna be.
Yeah,
But I would say on this particular thing, you know, working with Intercity, like you said, trying to get some type of rolling account as we need it type of scenario. Construction type.
Is that on in the trustees packet that I saw that they had given you the commitment letter? Is that where I saw that, or did you? I can't remember if you sent that or not. but-
Jenna sent the RFP stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I emailed the detailed RFPs.
I
Everybody
got
on
the
board
indication that they were
finance.
willing to do that.
Yes.
Oh, okay, well, I guess you have a handle on it.
I tried.
So clarify this for me,
Sure.
behind here, but we would be done holding two 20-year notes on the building when it's done? Two 20-year bonds, I mean,
We could,
20-year.
if we,
By
if-
doing it the way you're doing it, that would be the only way it would make sense. Otherwise, we'd have to issue a bond at the end of the project, which is gonna be then at the current rate at that time, right?
or, right, what we do is we could have just a GO note for the administrative part, unless it would be beneficial to refinance. It's something to work with Greg to see what's better for the village
At the time,
at the time.
Well, either way, they're both the bonds are being done as refunding bonds, correct?
Yes.
The likelihood of the rates being higher
Next year.
at the end of next year is substantially higher than it is right now. It's
Right,
just
I
the idea
understand. But I was hearing it the way that, and I guess it would depend on what the rates are, whether we want to have one bond at the end versus two separate ones, because we're talking about possibly having two separate ones, right?
but if your interest rates are, you know, that would offset related costs too.
I mean, 25 basis points on 10 million, is that 25,000 a year?
I think that's right.
I mean, that's the difference. So if the interest rates do move a quarter point or a half a point, and you're talking 50,000 more a year if we waited, whereas if you locked that 10 million in originally.
So it may mean additional cost, but after, over a period of time, it won't mean anything.
Right.
Save that much. Okay, I move to recommend the village board accept the bid out proposal from Intercity Aquarium.
Motion by Bender,
I'll second that.
second by Minell. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Can you put me as abstaining?
Pardon?
Can you put me as abstaining?
Okay. Abstain.
I got it.
Okay. Right. Resolution 2021-22, designating officials authorized to declare official intent under reimbursement bond regulation.
So for under state statute, before we start spending money on a project that we plan on borrowing for, we need to get a reimbursement resolution signed. Basically, the intent that we're gonna reimburse ourselves with borrowing proceeds on expenditures that we will be making for our project. This resolution basically says that Keith has the ability to designate an expenditure or a project to be reimbursed with debt proceeds.
Can I make the motion here for this? I recommend that the recommend that the Board of Trustees designate the village administrator as authorized to sign the declaration of official intent pursuant to the reimbursement bond regulations.
I'll second it.
Minell, second by Bender. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. We didn't have to abstain from that. Okay, future items. Next meeting date, Monday, August 30th at 4:30 PM or budget meeting.
We were just throwing dates out there. We'll get the doodle poll together and see when we first want to have our first budget meeting.
No, because I mean, you gotta give yourself time too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're running yourself ragged just to meet a date that. Okay, topics for future meetings, budget. That's probably the main thing on the agenda.
Right.
Bob, did you have anything that you thought?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, remarks from staff?
So with the vendor addition to the procurement procedure / checklist, so we were looking into that because that was mentioned last meeting. And so what we're gonna get together, because we talked about, so having a checklist of stuff to go through when the guys are going to this company, getting a $30 part coming back and us processing it with part in hand, requires a little bit less work than when if we have a contract with somebody to redo our pool surface for $200,000. I believe that we'll do a little bit more research, make sure things are good with that vendor. So before we go through and we write one that's all encompassing, I think what we want to do is really analyze what are we buying, making sure that the checklist for the $30 street part is a different checklist from the 200,000 pool rentals. So that's what we'll be bringing back next time, unless you disagree. I can make up something, but just the way that our purchases go on a regular basis, having a lot of additional work for the vendor down the street with, just the street part should be different with, than.
Right. Right.
Paying them on the other hand, we should be requiring a W-9 before pay. I mean, that's something that we would need to get a hold of, and, cause usually Jen and I are calling, in January. We need to stop that process.
And it, just the general purchases, you can get overwhelmed if you got too much paperwork.
Right.
Are you thinking about setting some sort of minimum? I thought about that, like,
I was thinking
Under-
about a minimum, like something where they're gonna get the product before, I mean, when they bring the product back to us, we gotta pay it, but if we're going out and for a project, that's where we'll have the time to do a little bit more research, before the project, and we are obligated to pay for something.
I would suggest some de minimis amount where you're like, under this dollar amount, we're not even gonna bother to, whatever that dollar amount is, I don't know.
We do have a procurement policy. So we can probably go off that and just kind of add on to it.
I mean, what does the county do? How do they do it?
I don't know. That's all I had.
Tina, you have anything? Okay. Remarks from committee members, anybody have any startling news or? Okay, any questions or anything? Okay. Any announcements? Nothing? Okay, I guess, then we'll, have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Okay, we are adjourned at 5:06. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Which bank are you with? Oh, okay. I know somebody told me once, but I don't remember.